welcome to AboutFACE Theatre presents 5 Questions With, and today's guest, Stephanie Klemons. Stephanie is an award-winning choreographer, performer, and director. Her Broadway credits include Hamilton, where she was part of the original cast, as well as being an associate choreographer and the global dance supervisor on the smash hit. Additionally, she was an original cast member on In the Heights, and was also associate choreographer on productions of that, including getting a Carbonell Award nomination for her work there. Additional Broadway credits include the musicals Bring It On and If Then. Her choreography also includes commercial work for clients like Amazon, Victoria's Secret, and Vogue, among many others, while she recently directed This Is Sadie for New York Children's Theatre. On top of all that, she is a passionate educator who has taught hundreds of masterclasses and is the founder of the nonprofit Katie's Art Project. Stephanie, you're very welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thank you for that intro.
It's all true. It's all true.
It's all you. So, Stephanie, just diving right in, what play or experience first got you into theater?
So I grew up in New Jersey, just outside of New York City. I was actually born in Manhattan, lived in Brooklyn, and then we kind of settled in New Jersey. And my mom took me to see Cats when I was about 5 years old. And, you know, people have questionable opinions about Cats, that's fine. But as a 5-year-old, it was absolutely incredible.
I bet.
People just like crawling around the stage and singing and dancing. And I had already been like a huge fan of, I was born in 1982, which is like when MTV, I think, was born. So I was like the child of the music videos. And so I was already like dancing to Madonna and Michael Jackson videos in my house. And so I already had the bug. And once I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. I want to crawl around on the stage and sing and dance.
Yes.
That's amazing. And what was the first steps towards doing it professionally?
Well, you know, throughout high school and like grade school, I moved around a little bit. So I moved studios. You know, some people like grow up in a studio and they compete and they sort of like go on this path. I didn't really have that. I went back and forth. I was also very interested in science. My parents are both doctors, and we had an agreement when I left high school that I would like go to college, apply to medical school, get in, and then defer for a year. And I had like 1 year to like try it out.
Okay.
And so I, in college, sort of started to say to people like, you know, I really want to be a professional dancer. And people were like, okay, sure, you know, like, all right. And I, you know, had success. Like I was like, you know, the captain of the dance team in high school and was really well known as like the dancer. I had gotten, you know, when I did do some competitions in high school, I had gotten like some competition scholarships. So I had already sort of like had some success, but I think people were like, what? Just coming from, you know, this family where my parents were dentists and whatever. So when I was in college, I auditioned for Madonna's national tour. And I got like really, really far to the point where I was like on like a waiting list. And so when one of the dancers got injured, they called me to come in and be on the tour. I was still in college and there was like a lot going on personally in my life at the time. And so I couldn't do it, but I was like, oh my God, like Madonna is my dream tour. You know, that's my cat. That would be my dream. And I can do it, like it happened. And so it kind of like really bolstered my confidence. I was, I think, a sophomore in college and thinking like, okay, when it's time, I can do this. Yeah, so that was like, and then my first professional job was, sorry. What are you doing? She wants to be on the camera. My first professional job dancing was, I think, so I like got to sort of like, I like, you know, graduated college. I did this like little internship thing in Spain because I wanted to live in Spain for a bit. And then I got to New York. And in my first 2 weeks, I was like taking class at Broadway Dance Center, which is like, you know, the big studio here. And there was like a scout for Nickelodeon and they were casting a commercial for Sierra, who was like a, you know, Sierra, the singer, right? So Sierra was doing this commercial for Nickelodeon and Noggin, which is like a big network here. And I booked this commercial with like Jonte and like all these like really Luam, like these huge names in New York. And I was just like this very shy, like little 21-year-old that was like, this is so cool, but like, okay. So, so that was my first professional job.
Wow. Fantastic.
That's great.
Okay, so Stephanie, you've talked about how Cats was an early influence on you.
Meow.
I admitted it. Yeah,
But what's one great play or musical that you love, and why?
So I'm like real, I love heady things. Okay. Like, don't get me wrong. You know, I love things that are like beautiful and artistic and make you think and like sort of have elements of discord and all of that. Like I saw Amadeus in the UK and it was like one of the most amazing moments in theater. It was beautiful. But I also love like I love cheesy musical theater, like Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and just like, you know, Will Rogers Follies, and just like just different things like through the years that have come that just sort of like tug on your heartstrings. And so you know, when I was growing up, I really liked Frank Wildhorn and his, you know, like what's Jekyll and Hyde, like stuff like that, that just like, you know, has like a really like feel good cathartic resolution to the music. And I always think stuff like that is really beautiful, and it always like tugs on my child musical theater heartstrings. I think as an adult, like I enjoy being challenged by a piece more, but like when I see stuff like that, it gives me this nostalgic sort of like 1980s early 90s theater that that I grew up loving.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So Stephanie, can you tell us about a time in your theater life where something turned out differently than you expected it to?
Oh gosh, something turned out differently than I expected. Well, so I'll talk about this experience when I was in sleepaway camp. I don't know if people go to sleepaway camp by you, but people like here. Is that a thing? Okay.
Well, they do an Irish camp. So
in
the Gaels talk where they go away and they speak Irish for like so 2 weeks.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, this is for 8 weeks. So this is 2 months. So like the parents send their kids away for 2 months. And I mean, you're like a teenager. It's not like and then some people, I mean, it starts like as early as like 8 years old. I only did like half summers then. But anyway, when I was a teenager, I went to the sleepaway camp in the States called Bucks Rock, which is like an arts camp essentially. And I was going as a CIT or a JC, right? A counselor in training or a junior counselor, something just like between camper and counselor. And I was meant to be a dance counselor. And when I got there, they were like, sorry, we overbooked the dance department. We have enough staff. We're going to create a role for you and you're going to be the resident choreographer. So essentially like I was choreographing all the musicals that summer. And I at first was really upset, right? Because one, you're a teenager. So like your expectations like rule everything. And two, like I wasn't in the dance department with like all my dance friends. Like I didn't have a group. I was the single resident choreographer. I didn't have a department. You know, I was like part of the theater department, part of the dance department. And I ended up choreographing 4 musicals that summer. Funny thing happened on the way to the Forum, Bugsy Malone, Jesus Christ Superstar, and I think one other thing. But I was like, oh my God, I love this. And up until that point in my life, I think I was 19, I hadn't done musical theater. I mean, like I wanted to be on Broadway, which is like, so it's funny, like I wanted to be on Broadway, but I was only dancing really up until that point. And so it kind of like thrust me into this world. And I was like, again, like I really do love this, and I have like a thing for it, you know, like I have a knack for it. And so that was really magical and cool. And then I was in this off-Broadway show called Automatic Superstar, and the choreographer had to back out because he had another job, and we were like going to extend the run to a new space. We had to like re-choreograph the show. And so the director hired me. I was already dancing in the show. He hired me to choreograph the show. So I choreographed this off-Broadway show when I was like 22 years old or something, which was not expected. And I did these other 2 shows, this other off-Broadway show called Repo, the Genetic Opera, which became like a cult film, which is totally bizarre to me. But it was down on Washington Street in New York. And I got there and the choreographer was like, you're great. Why don't you just be like the associate choreographer and help me choreograph the show? So then that happened. And then I was in this other musical with the New York City Children's Theater, again, when I was like 23 years old or so. And the director, Rajendra, was same thing. He was like, "You're great. Why don't you help me choreograph this number and this number?" So I ended up being associate choreographer of that. And then my first In the Heights, it was like my first sort of like New York, like Broadway. It was our pre-Broadway run. It was off Broadway, but it was like we knew we were going to Broadway. We hoped we were going to Broadway. I was in the show as a swing, which is like someone who covers lots of parts. And a series of things happened, and they were like, "We need a dance captain." And then I became the dance captain of that show. And then when the national tour went out, I ended up being the associate choreographer of that. So I feel like a lot of the sort of things in my career that have been like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that," is always like, I'm expecting to be performing, and then I'm like choreographing or somehow involved in that part of the production. So that's happened to me a lot. That's like just a few of the stories. So now I just go straight for I'm like, okay, you want me to choreograph? I get it.
You're not fighting the universe anymore.
No, I'm not. I mean, I love performing, and I take jobs whenever I can, but
Yeah,
great.
Amazing.
Okay, so Stephanie, so you've also done choreography for commercials and worked in television and stuff. So what is it that keeps you coming back to the theater? What moves you? What excites you about theater?
Yeah, there's nothing like theater for so many reasons, especially for a dancer and a choreographer, because so like on film and TV, the choreographer is like an addendum, right? Like we're not part of the whole process. The biggest part of a process I ever was I choreographed this commercial for the Super Bowl that ended up like being this really huge viral commercial with Eli Manning and Odell Beckham Jr. We did like a pun, like a play on Dirty Dancing. And so like we did this whole Super Bowl commercial, and then ended up being, it was like the top 3 commercials for like 3 years in a row. It was really cool. And with that commercial, two things, right? So one, the director and the client, like the creator, the ad team who created the ad, had been planning it for some time, and then they brought me in to like execute it. But then I got there and I got to say like, well, it'd be better if we executed this like this and this like this. And so you're not part of the creation process. You're sort of like carrying out something, right?
Yeah.
And additionally, a really, really upsetting and hilarious and not hilarious thing is, so you can get paid for commercials by buyout or by residuals, right? So I was a choreographer of this huge viral dance commercial that still gets talked about, and I had a buyout on that commercial.
Ouch.
And the buyout, I won't tell you what my buyout was, but it was so small on a commercial that surely has made millions. I mean, the plays on the internet alone are insane. And it's because I was the choreographer. Like, even though I was the one running the commercial shoot, the director was running the shoot. I don't want to take anything away from him. Like, he was running it, but like, it was a dance commercial.
Yeah.
And like the same thing, like I just choreographed a show for Showtime, and I choreographed some other things for Netflix and other stuff. And again, it's like, you're brought in the day of, you're given like the chunk of the script. It's like in theater, you are the fabric. Like choreography and dance is like part of the fabric. You're there from the beginning. You are a creator, you're a source. It's and additionally, like I said, all the cheesy things about musicals that I love that just like tug on your heartstrings, I am in love with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's perfect.
Love it. Yeah. So can you tell us, is there any, tool from theater, since you've been doing it, you've been doing dance and everything for a long time. So is there any tool from that you have found useful in other aspects of life or other parts of your life?
Yeah. I think, one of the things I've been saying this whole time is like, I've always kind of been thrust into these leadership positions, and, they have like leadership training in the world, but when you go from being a dancer that's like suddenly the dance captain and then associate choreographer and then, director or whatever I've done with the various shows I've done, you learn a lot along the way. And I had this really challenging experience when I was doing Bring It On, where there was like one particular cast member, we were like maybe around the same age. And she just did not respect me. And she like refused. And like the second that the director walked out of the room, it was literally like, turn your back on me and like talk to the room over me. Like it was a really, really intense experience. And there were so many times where I just wanted to like run away and cry. And I was like, I have a job to do and not a lot of time to do it. And when the choreographer walks back in this room, he's going to expect this number to be done. And I just have to figure it out. And so the sort of grit that it took to get through so many moments where as a young, right, because I kind of transitioned into these leadership roles really young. Like my first Broadway show, I was 23, I think, when we opened, and I was the dance captain. So I was like in a leadership role for all these Broadway veterans, you know, like a cast of like 20 something people. I wasn't the only one. Thankfully, I had an excellent mentor, Michael Balderrama, who's I'm still working with today. But that was a really hard position to go in and like pretend like you know what you're talking about, right? Because like why do I know any more than you know? And so just the ability to believe in yourself and to know that like it doesn't matter if someone is coming directly for you. You have a job to do. And so it's your job to sort of stand your ground. And like, eventually the storm will be done. Eventually she will stop yelling in your face. Eventually, like she'll get tired and sit down and you can move on. But like, you just have to be the filter. You have to weather the storm, and, have some grit about you. And even when you feel like crying, you can't cry in front of all the people because everyone else deserves to have you at your best, and I think I wish sometimes as a mom I was that successful, because sometimes I just want to cry when my kids are being crazy. I wish I had that much grit, but no, I mean, you do. And so I think you take that everywhere with you. And I just think that type of leadership and that type of knowledge puts you in a position where you can handle so many other situations,
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Stephanie, this has been absolutely terrific. Thank you so much. As a bonus question, can we ask anything about what you're working on at the moment?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So I'm still doing Hamilton. I'm managing, all the companies of Hamilton. I'm actually sort of like dividing my job into two with me and Michael Balderrama, the person that I just described to you. So we can, he and I both have other things going on. In addition, like Hamilton is doing like this kind of transition. So the job is getting bigger. So, so I'm still sort of managing that. I manage like the UK company. He kind of handles the Australia company. We have someone else that's opening another company in Germany. And so managing all the Hamilton things, I am obviously a mom of two, so managing that house is fun. Sometimes I've had this day and I've, doing like all these like really making huge decisions, being the director of these shows and whatever, and I like come home and like I can't get my kid to lay down for me to get these shows. And I'm just like, it's a miracle anyone listens to me, because this 3-year-old just got me beat like 100%. I just before this changed my 9-month-old's diaper, and I was like, I just ran a marathon. Like it's just he's just squirming, worming. But that's what's up next too. And then I'm directing and choreographing a number of shows that are coming up in the next year. So
exciting,
brilliant.
Yeah. Well, as Paul said, thank you so much. It's been such
thank you for
having you. Yeah.
Thank
you to the audience for joining us as well. And if you liked the video, please like it below, share, and follow AboutFACE, because we believe theater makes life better. See you next time on AboutFACE Theater Presents 5 Questions With.
If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and share. Thanks for watching.